after 3D Studio Max or during 3D Studio Max, you're going to create the final visualization, and that the work that you do in Max could be animation, it could be anything you like. And as I said, on my floor in there, I wanted to get really into the depth of how that flooring works. So I wanted a nice European ash, and I wanted to understand the coefficients of that, how it blends, how it reflects, how it deals with light, how its roughness is, and so on. So all of that is done into Max. And then we can take all that, just like we did with the Revit model into Enscape, we can take all of that 3D Studio Max work into Vantage. So here's my Max 3D Studio Max model here. And if I change over, we can see that the V-Ray, the rendering that I was using was, which was the V-Ray 7 there. If I swap it out to the V-Ray GPU there, you see the reason is it's the GPU that's doing a lot of the work. So it's real-time computation. So this is why I'm moving it over to the GPU. Now in my Max scene here, I've got a toolbar here relevant to my Chaos Vantage. So for example, I can render the animation in Vantage directly. I can import changes from the Chaos Vantage. Here I can export and send the current scene to Vantage. And also I can, click on the drop down here, I could send the animation to Vantage as well. There's the live link settings there, and also I've got the live link. So I can actually set up a live link. So if you're working with Max, then you can send it straight into there, and you can make some changes in Max and it will show up into our Vantage. So what I've already done, I've already brought that in because I've actually saved it as a V-Ray scene and then brought that into Vantage. So to make it easier for us, I can see I have Vantage now. I brought this into Vantage and here it is. And it's the very same scene in Vantage. Now, as you can see, the visual is using this DLAA or Deep Learning Anti-Aliasing, part of NVIDIA's Deep Learning Super Sampling. So we've got an AI interaction with our rendering. So for example, the anti-aliasing where textures are changing, and that sampling that goes across here. So for example, I've got certain shadow in here and underneath here, and we've got darker areas here, full light here, and so on. We've got a nicer reflection. And also I mentioned in the other one where I'd got this reflection of my tree there, the blossom out there, starting to impact the view over here. So this particular view is as good as the view that I've just had with my Revit. And of course this is interactive, so to speak. So I can move around in here, like this, and we can view this. I can even press the W there, start moving through the scene like this and organizing what I want, and then do a render. So I could save the camera view. So for example, I've jumped back to the original camera view here. There's my original camera view. I have some tools here for render, for example. I don't want to go deep into the intricacies of Vantage because it's absolutely great. But one of the areas I do like is that this view, when I'm rendering in V-Ray, in Max or Corona, when we have things like focal length, or blur or any blurs, it takes a long time to render. So in my view here, I've got field of view, this type of thing in here. So if I click on some of the other camera views I've made, like this view down here, you can see that I've got a slight focal length in here. If I come back up to here, this one, I've got a deeper one here. So for example, I've now created a scene where the focal length has been given a depth of field here. The focal length, I've got a focal distance of 4,500 mil from where I'm stood. So the plant here is in focus. I think it's really useful. So I've got ideas here. This one here is quite literally the exterior that I haven't done anything with, and I've got another one in here of another interior here. So this is what, this is Vantage. So I can do this straight away. So I'm getting some really good visuals here. So for example, if I wanted to render from here, view, render high quality in here, I could render not only the stills, of course, but the animations. So for example, if I wanted to animate a path, I could animate a path from here over to here, or whatever we like. So we can do anything like that. Now, a lot of people will use Vantage as well as 3 Studio Max V-Ray Render, but very often, sometimes I'm seeing clients will say, well, if I come back to my Max here and look at my render, whilst we got some really nice renders coming together here, some of them could actually take a little time to render. They could take up quite a little bit of time. But because we're using our GPU and the RTX of our RTX cores of our NVIDIA card, then we can optimize the use of Vantage. So sometimes I'm not even going to render in 3 Studio Max. I'm just going to pass it through directly. I do all of my development in Max, create all the shaders, all the lighting, everything, and then just use my Vantage to do some final renders and animations. So we have there's a lot of features in here, and to be honest, we could have all day on here as well. But just to give you a brief understanding that workflow can take us right through from various conceptual ideas, bringing that into taking that from our Revit geometry, I might in interior, I can take that up into Enscape, and then we can enhance that as a workflow situation. And then that, when we're happy with that and we start to look at visualization as a higher end visualization for marketing or brochures or whatever, we can move that into 3 Studio Max, and then we can create the geometry, like in my case there, that the floor, and say, right, I want that particular floor. I might want different textures on the walls. I might have different geometry. So if for example, I might have to make some geometry that is particular to a building, and that would be made in Max, and then I can import that into that would come into the geometry, into the scene as well. And then obviously, like I said, all the textures that we would build, they would be built as much as we require. So that level of detail is greatly enhanced once we bring it into something like V-Ray Max, and then using V-Ray to render or Corona to render. And then after that, if you want to, with all that build, we can optimize Vantage as our rendering system by using a GPU. Now, of course, if your system doesn't have a decent, comprehensive display card on it, then of course things like Enscape and Vantage will struggle a little bit. So basically, there we go. We've got a nice understanding of a workflow there, of Varus as a conceptual idea, and Revit, Enscape, V-Ray, Max, and Vantage. A lot of nice stuff there. Give me a shout if you need any support on it. Simple as that. This is what I do. I'm a visualization specialist here at Symetri, and thank you very much for listening and watching me for the last few videos. Thank you.